Let's testify tonight. Oh God, you've done so much for me. I'm grateful and overwhelmed here at your feet. And I could stay here forever, Lord. But you call me to something more. And I hear you say that you have a plan to use every broken woman and man to display just how good you are. We are your living pieces of art. What good does it do to hide away when all of my scars are a picture of grace? All right. So I will testify of the power of God. I will tell the world of the hope I have found. You Lord, for my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, do you believe it? Has he done it for anyone else? I said, has he done it for anyone else? 'Cause the God that I serve, he's always at work. Has he done it for anyone else? So come on and testify of the power of God. Come on and tell the world of the hope we have found. For our body was broken, our hearts were made whole, and that's too good to keep to yourself. Come on and testify of the power of God. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify your voice. This is my. So I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify. Come on, take it out. Jesus, my champion, the victor of grace, the only one worthy of all of my praise. Yeah. So come on and testify. Oh, somebody lift him high. Come on, testify of the power of God. I will tell the world of the hope I have found. Oh, for my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Sing it. Oh, my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, let's do that right now, Murfreesboro.
And good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you're at. So let me just preface today's live stream by saying I apologize if I seem a little out of sorts or just low energy. The honest truth of it is last night I only got a few hours sleep. I woke up at like 1 something in the morning, couldn't get back to sleep. After a couple hours of trying, I just, got up and started my Uber driving. And so then I took a 2-hour nap that I woke up from literally minutes ago. which I forced myself to get up just to do this live stream. But part of me really didn't want to, but I was not gonna let you guys go without a live stream this week, especially because this week we're getting into what everybody has been waiting, and I understand you guys have been waiting for months for this live stream, and because this is a live stream where we're gonna finally cover infectious skin diseases. And I know that that's something that you guys have just been really, really looking forward to. And I just couldn't deny you of that pure, unadulterated joy of understanding the section of Leviticus covering infectious skin diseases. Now, all kidding aside, it's kind of interesting. This is the source of what I think I wouldn't call it necessarily a direct misinterpretation of the Bible as much as a misunderstanding through the American or the English translations. The old term lost in translation is sometimes very, very true. And signed book collectors asking if there are actually that many people taking Ubers in the morning. Yes, I mean, Murfreesboro is, it's like 160, 170,000 people. There are definitely people that go to work. There are several, there's a couple of major bakeries, a couple of production plants, stuff like that do shift work here in Murfreesboro. And it's not just Murfreesboro because I get rides going up to, all around Lebanon, Nashville, Smyrna, Antioch, so it's just Mount Juliet, quite a few. In fact, this morning, when I first started out, ended up going to Lebanon, then to Mount Juliet, then back to Lebanon, then to the Nashville airport, and then another run in Nashville, and then from Nashville down to Smyrna, then from Smyrna to Lavergne, and then from Lavergne back to Smyrna, and then to Murfreesboro, and then back to Smyrna. So, yeah. And you are 100% right about that, Arabic. If only Alexander from Quebec was here, he would indeed love this topic. But he's probably too busy studying on this topic on his own in the secular realm because, yeah, he's a weird one. All right, so the misunderstanding of Scripture. Let's jump right over to it, shall we? Using the magic button here. All right, and so I'm going to we'll get into the reading in just a moment, but I want to point something out that you can see right here. So we look at verse 3. I'm just going to do the first half of it here. It says, the priest is to examine the sore of the skin, and if the hair and the sore is turned white, and the sore appears to be more than skin deep, it is a defiling skin disease. Now, this is one of the, I know there are a lot of people out there that believe that the King James Bible is the only true Bible because of the changes they made in later versions because they're trying to edit out God or whatever. Well, let me kind of address that. The King James Bible is not a bad Bible per se, but it is not a particularly accurate one. And it's also created a lot of misunderstanding about some of the various Christian theology out there for people that basically only read the English translation and don't bother to look into the Greek or Hebrew words behind it. And so this is one of those cases. So let me simply switch, because one nice thing about Bible Gateway is that you can go to pretty much every version of the Bible, and there's the old King James. And if we go to verse 3, notice it says, the priest shall look upon the plague of the skin of the flesh, and when their hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in the sight is deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy. It actually names the disease, that it is leprosy. And in the King James Bible, you will see in this chapter the word leprosy appear a lot. And some of this will make sense as we do the actual reading, but we also, I'm sure you guys are very well aware that there are many incidents in the New Testament of Jesus healing people with leprosy. Now, leprosy, the modern is still it's a real disease, and it's something that is still around to this day. It's called Hansen's disease. However, this is not a chapter about leprosy. And in fact, when Jesus heals various sick people, not every sick person that he healed was suffering from Hansen's disease or leprosy. Instead, what happened, and this started with the King James Version, and to this day in the zeitgeist it still is, and in the New Testament, in most translations, it's still focused on the word leprosy, but because the language that's used in the written, it basically the word used here, sarat, I believe it is, it can mean leprosy, but it can mean any type of infectious disease, and more or less specifically diseases that, if left untreated, will in fact kill you. And leprosy, of course, certainly qualifies for that. And leprosy was much more common back then than it is now. And the reason that infectious diseases are treated so seriously, it will become very apparent as we go through this reading. All right, so I wanted to touch that up front, and so whenever you see, well, because we're going to be reading the NIV, but whenever you see something like infectious disease or infectious skin disease, in the King James version, it was translated to leprosy, and that's one of the reasons that people think that everybody had leprosy back then, because because the word that was translated to leprosy was really a much more generic term. All right, so this is Leviticus chapter 13, starting at verse 1. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when anyone has a swelling or a rash or a shiny spot on their skin, it may be a defiling skin disease. They must be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons who is a priest. So it's basically, so you need to get a proper diagnosis. And while, keep in mind, modern medicine obviously did not exist, because this is not modern times. And in fact, there was very little medicine per se in the contemporary sense at all, right? So if you had a disease like this, that was bad news. But the first thing is, don't panic. You need to actually get a proper diagnosis. And so Aaron and his sons, and they would pass this tradition down, would basically be trained on not necessarily how to treat said diseases, but at least how to identify them. And that's another thing we're going to get into, because one thing that I really got mad about by some atheists is going to come up later in this chapter, as a gross misunderstanding of this scripture. And it seems patently obvious when you actually read it, but whatever. The priest is to examine the sore in the skin, and if the hair in the sore has turned white and the sore appears to be more than skin deep, it is a defiling skin disease. When the priest examines that person, he shall pronounce them ceremonially unclean. All right? Now, I just want to get into this a little bit. So all these little details you're going to hear about the diagnosis of, like I said, in this, it says they have a skin disease. And what they're describing here is actually fairly accurate. If you had a sore and all this was going on with the sore, then chances are you have some kind of skin disease that can be contagious and that could be fatal. And so the ceremonially unclean thing is we'll get into that in just a minute, but it's to kind of get that person in quarantine, more or less. And the but to just call it leprosy obviously is not doing it justice, because and in fact some people say, well, you see, the Bible doesn't know what it's talking about, because this is not a good way to diagnose leprosy specifically. No, this is a way to cover generally does this person have some kind of contagion on their body that could be spread to the rest of the community. And remember, at this point in history, the Jews are living in tents in close quarters. If somebody comes down with an infectious disease and doesn't report it, it could wipe out all of Israel right now. So it's very, very important that people understand, no, you don't mess around. You got a rash, you show it to the priest. And doesn't matter how embarrassed you are about it, you get a rash, you show it to the priest so they can verify that, you're not going to become a threat to their entire existence. And so it's not, even though it is ceremonially clean or unclean, the purpose for it is clear, is for the safety of the people. If the shiny spot on the skin is white but does not appear more than skin deep, and the hair has not turned white, the priest is to isolate the affected person for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest is to examine them, and if he sees the sore is unchanged and has not spread in the skin, he is to isolate them for 7 more days. On the 7th day, if the priest is to examine them again, if the sore has faded and is not spread in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only a rash. They must wash their clothes, and they will be clean. So, if they're not sure if it's really bad or not, then they put you in quarantine for a week, you come back. If it's the same, put you in quarantine, you come back. Once you see it either get better or get worse, then you make your pronouncement. So we're not going to rush to calling everybody unclean. We're not the Pharisees yet. Instead, we want to actually give an accurate diagnosis. We don't want to say that people that have just a simple rash have some kind of contagion. But even then, now think about it. They have to wash their clothes, and that is the ceremony and it's basically a way of thanking God that you don't have some kind of infectious disease. But why are you washing your clothes? Again, this is some of the cleverness of the Old Testament. Well, if it is, say, a minor skin disease, wash your clothes to prevent the spread. But if the rash does spread in their skin and they have shown themselves to the priest to be pronounced clean, they must appear before the priest again. The priest is to examine the person. If the rash has spread in the skin, he shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling skin disease. When anyone has a defiling skin disease, they must be brought to the priest. The priest is to examine them. If there's white swelling in the skin that has turned the hair white, and if there's raw flesh in the swelling. So now we're talking about like something really bad. And that does actually sound very much like leprosy. It is a chronic skin disease, and the priest shall pronounce them unclean. He is not to isolate them because they are already unclean. Meaning, and it doesn't mean, hey, yeah, you're fine, go back home. It's saying that if you have a full on, your skin is breaking out and literally separating. Which would be really, if you've never seen what Hansen's disease looks like, it's disgusting. And so at this point, yeah, they don't need to put you in quarantine for a week and come back. They know this is not good. So they pronounce you unclean at that point. And by the way, at this point, if you have something like Hansen's disease, back then, it was an absolute death sentence. Hansen's disease can still kill you if it's left untreated, but it's fairly easily treated today, and which is why you don't hear about it much. But so it doesn't get a chance to really spread that much. But back then, before antibiotics or anything like that, somebody had Hansen's disease, then as soon as the priest said you're unclean, that was a death sentence. Because we'll get to that in just a moment here. If the disease breaks out all over the skin, so far as the priest can see, it covers all the skin of the affected person from head to foot. The priest is to examine them, and if the disease has covered their whole body, he shall if the and if the disease has covered their whole body, he shall pronounce them clean, since it has all turned white, they are clean. But whenever a raw flesh appears on them, they will be unclean. When the priest sees raw flesh, he shall pronounce them unclean. The raw flesh is unclean. They have a defiling disease. If the raw flesh changes and turns white, they must go to the priest. The priest is to examine them. If the sores have turned white, the priest shall pronounce the affected person clean, and they will be clean. So basically, if in fact, so your skin is breaking, things are looking really bad, but then it heals up, then the priest will call you clean again. When someone has a boil on their skin and it heals, and in the place where the boil was, the white swelling or the reddish white spot appears, they must present themselves to the priest. The priest is to examine it, and if it appears to be more than skin deep, and their hair in it has turned white, the priest shall pronounce that person unclean. It is a defiling skin disease that has broken out where the boil was. But if, when the priest examines it, there's no white hair in it, and it is not more than skin deep and has faded, then the priest is to isolate them for 7 days. But if it is not spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. If it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling disease. But if the spot is unchanged and has not spread, it is only a scar from the boil, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. When someone has a burn on their skin and a reddish white or white spot appears in the raw flesh of the burn, the priest is to examine the spot. If the hair is turned white and appears to be more than skin deep, as a defiling disease that is broken out in the burn. The priest so this is like basically if you got a burn and there's an infection in it. The priest shall pronounce them unclean as a defiling skin disease. But if the priest examines it and there's no white hair in the spot and there's no more than skin deep and has faded, then the priest is to isolate them for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest is to examine that person. And if the spreading in the skin, and if it is spreading in the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is a defiling skin disease. If, however, the spot is unchanged and has not spread in the skin, but has faded, it is a swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only a scar from the burn. So you get the idea. If a man or woman has a sore on their head or chin, the priest is to examine the sore and is to examine, and if it appears to be more than skin deep and the hair in it is yellow and thin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean as a defiling skin disease on the head or chin. But if, when the priest examines the sore, does not seem to be more than skin deep, or there is no black hair in it, then the priest is to isolate the person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest examines the sore. If it has not spread, and there is no yellow hair, and it does not appear to be more than skin deep, then the man and the woman must shave themselves except for the affected area, and the priest is to keep them isolated for another 7 days. Again, a very interesting and surprisingly advanced medical practice. So if, for example, if I go in and I've got some kind of weird spot up here in my head, and they look at it, and then they determine that I'll probably be okay, but I still have to shave my head and lose all this wonderful, glorious hair, because it would be better to shave your head than to possibly have this, whatever this is, if it's like a minor little infection, spread out throughout your head. All right, where's the how was the person's, man, I lost where I was. Examine the sore someday. If you're still not really wash. Okay, we didn't get that far. If the priest examines the sore, no black hair, the priest isolates the person for 7 days. On the seventh day, the priest examines the sore. If it's not spread and there's no yellow hair in it, does not appear more than skin deep, then the man and the woman must shave themselves except for the affected area. And the priest is to keep them isolated another 7 days. On the seventh day, if the priest is to examine the sore and it's not spread in the skin and appears that there's no more than skin deep, the priest shall pronounce them clean. They must wash their clothes again, and they will be clean. But if the sore does spread in the skin, if the sore, I keep misreading, but if the sore does spread in the skin after they are pronounced clean, the priest is to examine them, and if they find that the sore has spread in the skin, he does not need to look for yellow hair. They are unclean. If, however, the sore is unchanged so far as the priest can see, and if the black hair has grown in it, the affected person is healed. They are clean, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. See, lots and lots of fun stuff here. When a man or a woman has white spots on the skin, the priest is to examine them, and if the spots are dull white, it is harmless rash that has broken out on the skin. They are clean. A man who has lost his hair and is bald is clean. So baldness is not, something that defiles you per se. If he has lost his hair from the front of his scalp and has a bald forehead, he is clean. But if he has a reddish white sore on his bald head or forehead, it is a defiling skin disease breaking out on his head or forehead. The priest is to examine him. If the swollen sore on his head or forehead is reddish white, like a defiling skin disease, the man is diseased and is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him unclean because of the sore on his head. Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, unclean, unclean. Now think about that for just a minute. I'm sorry, all you Fauci haters. The Bible is telling people, put on a freaking mask right here. But not only that, the torn clothes is to be a sign, and you're supposed to warn people that you are unclean. This is so people will not approach you. And the covering your face so that you're not breathing on them. My goodness, this is, 1400 BC. And people say that the Bible has no practical modern, information in it. It tells you right there that if you have an infectious disease, to wear a mask. Anyone with such a okay, I already read that. As long as they have the disease and they remain unclean, they must live alone. They must live outside the camp. That's why it's a death sentence. If you live outside of the camp at this point, that means that you have no food, you have no shelter, you have nothing, unless your family brings you food in order to keep you alive. And so people that would have some kind of infectious disease like this would be literally kicked out of the camp. And the only way they could survive is on the good graces of their family. Remember, there was no welfare program back then. All right, so now we have molds. Hey! This is another very interesting thing. So when we talk about molds here in the Old Testament, we're going to talk about molds affecting various fabrics, various materials, and the word used to describe these molds is the same word that's used for the infectious skin disease. That's why it's just a general term for a contagion. It's not a word that specifically means leprosy or any other specific disease. As for any fabric that is spoiled with a defiling mold, any woolen or linen clothing, any woolen or knitted material of linen or wool, any leather or anything made of leather, if the area affected in the fabric, the leather, the woven or knitted material, or any leather article is greenish or reddish, it is a defiling mold and must be shown to the priest. The priest is to examine the affected area and isolate the article for 7 days. On the seventh day, he is to examine it. If the mold has spread in the fabric, the woven or knitted material, or the leather, whatever its use, it is a persistent, defiling mold. The article is unclean. He must burn the fabric, the woven or knitted material of wool or linen or any leather article that has been spoiled because of the defiling mold is present. The article must be burned. Again, burning something like this is actually a really good way to dispose of something that has some kind of contagion on it. And in fact, is still a common practice today. But when the priest examines it, the mold has not spread in the fabric. The woven, I'm so struggling with that word for some reason. Or knitted material on the or the leather article, he shall order that the spoiled article be washed. Then he is to isolate it for another 7 days. After the article has been washed, the priest is to examine it again, and if the mold has not changed its appearance, even though it is not spread, it is unclean. So if it's persistent, burn it no matter which side of the fabric has been spoiled. If, when the priest examines it, the mold has faded after the article has been washed, he is to tear the spoiled part out of the fabric, the leather, or the woven or knitted material. But if it reappears in the fabric, the woven or knitted material, or in the leather article, it is spreading mold. Whatever has the mold must be burned. Any fabric, woven or knitted material, or any leather article that has been washed and is rid of the mold must be washed again, then it will be clean. These are the regulations concerning defiling molds in woolen or linen clothing, woven or knitted material, or any leather article for pronouncing them clean or unclean. So there we go. That's the fun-filled infectious skin disease. You're welcome. All right, so all right, and by the way, so Mike Richards put in the chat early on that his heart transplant is 20 years old today. So congratulations, replacement ticker. Glad to hear that. All right, let's see. We got anything? Yeah, that's too bad. And then Mike, of course, Mike Richards actually left. So sorry, Mike, I didn't get to tell you that. Here, I thought you weren't going to stream. Well, I did. Did Michael finish or just start reading? Well, obviously now I've just finished. I just finished reading about Roman mythology, and now I'm going to do Germanic mythology. Sounds interesting. I never could understand the meaning of Jesus curing the man with leprosy. Well, Jesus cured lots of disease. I mean, that was just one of the things that he did. I mean, when you say the meaning of it, it depends on the individual situation, but generally the meaning is to show people, the healing touch of God. What if you debated a pagan? Well, then I would be having a discussion with a pagan. I mean, I guess it would kind of depend on what the topic was. Good thing we have modern medicine, absolutely. If Michael doesn't stream, check out me doing Germanic mythology on Tuesday and Thursday at 1 a.m. Atlanta time. 1 a.m. or 1 p.m.? If multi-gunman and Alex Bogey got into a fight, would be crazy. Gunman is a gun expert, and Alex has an army background. I'd have to give it to Gunman. Well, I don't know what Alex did in the army, so I can't speak with any authority on that. But then you also have to kind of keep in mind multi-gunman is an Australian and therefore psychotic and on a murderous rampage everywhere he goes, so he would probably win. And then Josiah says, Jethro versus the skipper. Well, here we got so Jethro Clampett is, of course, one of the Beverly Hillbillies. Now, Jethro, in his advantage, would be that he comes from a tradition of hunting, that, he is physically in much better shape than the skipper. But I don't believe, have ever seen Jethro actually use a weapon of any kind in the Beverly Hillbillies. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think that Jesse is the only one we actually see fire a weapon on the show. So, given that, and the fact that the skipper has a long-standing naval training as well as survival training, obviously he kept those castaways alive for what, decades on that stupid island. I would probably have to give it to the skipper. That, I guess. All right, so looks like we're all caught up and nobody's saying anything. So I guess that's going to be about it. So, guys, thank you as always for hanging out with me. And, now that we've talked all about infectious skin diseases, I know that you can't wait because next time we're going to be talking about how to cleanse the infectious skin disease. That's what I was going to say. So and then we're going to get into bodily discharges. Oh, there's a fun one. But real quick on the cleansing part. So the cleansing rituals are about ceremonial cleansing after a disease has cured itself, because more or less the idea is that if you have a disease like this and it gets better, that's what they would consider direct intervention by God, because this is not the kind of disease that just gets better. And so you go through this cleansing ritual and thank God that you are okay. And we see this, by the way, in the New Testament when Jesus heals the leper and he then tells them to go to the priest and present himself and then to be cleansed. And so then so this is a ritual that you're supposed to do to thank God and to show the people that you are indeed clean. There are a lot of atheists out there that take the cleansing ritual as to be some kind of magic potion that cures leprosy. Clearly, that's not the case. And so, if you're going to make an argument about the meaning of a particular scripture, maybe you should understand what that scripture means. Josiah says, when will the next stream be? I don't know. I would say definitely on Sunday morning. I'm hoping that Friday night we're going to do a nerd stream with Mr. Know-It-All, and if it's possible, tomorrow night. But tomorrow night I can't promise because it's going to depend on how things go. And it's been a rough week as far as driving the Uber stuff, but got to do what you got to do. All right, guys. So remember,